welcome back to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, trying to bring a little normalcy to this world. Do I ever succeed? Not often, but we try anyway. And, of course, I brought a guest to help me try to do this. And my guest today, I've been trying to get him on for a long time, and we finally were able to get a date and make it work. Anthony Ceballos, which I probably just destroyed that last name, the Wraith Prince himself.
Yeah.
From Texas Wraith Hunters. And how you doing tonight, Anthony?
Doing awesome. Now,
Glad to
you
hear
nailed
it.
You nailed the last name.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah.
And of course, Anthony is also the host of his own podcast, Wraith World Podcast, which I'll let him give all that information at the end so he can promote himself to the fullest. But the first question I ask everybody in this show, and the answers are usually different. What got you into the paranormal?
That hard question.
Yes.
Well, it started for me when I was 5 years old. I ended up having, a near-death experience, and I actually died for 5 minutes. And after that, I don't know if that's what it caused it, or if we just kind of like born with it, or that kind of opened it up. But since I was 5, I started to see, I could be able to see spirits in the house and around people. And as I got older, 8 years old, 10 years old, that's when it really started to ramp up, and then just started to grow up in it. And since I didn't have anyone to tell me that spirits weren't real, and to shut it down, it evolved. So throughout my life, it's just the way it's been.
Well, that's interesting. Hello, Isaiah, and hello, Kimmy.
What's going on, Kimmy? Thank you for joining.
Apparently, she knows you.
Yeah,
but
Kimmy.
Oh yeah.
Well, IG from the Don Vic show.
Yeah, the Parapost family is huge, so it's hard for me to know. I know Isaiah though. He's been on a bunch of my shows lately. Well, but the other question I ask people is, what experiences have you had with the paranormal? And I know it's probably for you, it's probably a long list. So, what are some of the most interesting / terrifying ones you've had?
Terrifying ones. Well, it's like when I was a kid. I mean, I could see, I would see people, and they would look like I guess what you call demons, like they look in the movies. Just real ugly. That was terrifying right there for me. I mean, you're a kid and you don't understand what you're seeing, and so pretty much after that, I mean, I kind of got used to it. Only certain people I would see like that, and then as far as the experiences, I mean, we've had some in this investigation here that we're fixing to do. We're going back. It's a 2-year investigation. We've gone there 6 times. It's a forest in San Antonio, and I've spoke about it here recently on a number of podcasts and online. That place, man, in there, it's just something else. I mean, it's interdimensional. When you go in there, you will not come out the same. Your life will change. I mean, our life literally changed 2 years ago. We have never been the same. It cost me one member. He never, he just went, he did his own thing, just left. So that was a pretty heavy experience. And yet we're going back. We're going to be going back there in 2 weeks. It's in San Antonio.
I mean, I've heard of forests being like interdimensional or just being portals for other creatures to come through. But so is it just spirits in that forest? Like, has there been like a big tragedy that happened there or something?
Well, it's a forest. Of course, San Antonio, is built on native ground. And the whole city really is built on top of native cemeteries. I mean, you can Google it and you can see the plaza where they'll tell you on there that, they built this plaza on top of an Indian burial ground. So, you got a lot of upset people there. The spirits are upset, and that's understandable. So you will hear a lot of drum beating. We've heard women crying. We've seen apparitions in there. Like I said, it's like a candy store. If you name it, it's in there. But this place will challenge your mind and challenge your abilities. You will, like I said, you will not come back out the same. This has
See,
been out of the 40 years. This one has been the most intense one of all.
see, I'm a big gamer, and I've been saying for a long time now they need to make an open world RPG where you're a paranormal investigator and you go around the world to all these different spots and like you have to go investigate them and find some way to put in like I don't know whether it be battling or just quest of some kind.
Right,
But like I could design it if I had to, but I mean not literally design it, but I could come up with the ideas if I had to. But I mean it's just they need to do a game like that. I mean
yeah,
I want a game where I can go look for Bigfoot in the forest and stuff like that. Like that's what I want.
right,
Like it's just that. I mean, I said I said 15 years ago they need a Harry Potter game where you can walk around and cast Avada Kedavra at everybody, and now they have it. I
right,
just beat it. I just beat it within like 2 or 3 weeks. So
yeah.
I mean, they need to have it. So I don't know. And what's going on, Dover Paratech? Glad to have you watching. But so I mean, I don't know. That's they say you put it out in the world and eventually it might happen. So
Yeah.
I want world, give me a paranormal investigation game, please. A good one for Xbox and PlayStation, but
Mhm.
and PC, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. It's a dream of mine. Like, I mean, yeah, the closest I think I've ever seen is like an Assassin's Creed 3 when like you go and look for like Bigfoot, but it ends up just being a hermit living in the woods.
Right.
But like that's the closest I've ever seen to like something like that. So it'd be interesting. That's all I'm saying, people. Like universe, make it happen.
Yeah.
But so when you say you saw demons your whole childhood, were they actually like people you knew and they just were really like taken over by demons, or were they separate entities altogether?
Well, yeah, it started with the family. I mean, I would look at my family, like my grandmother, and like I would start to hear voices telling me to do bad things. You know what I mean? Of course, now we can say that because at one time we could never say that.
Of course,
You'd be
yeah.
locked up in a heartbeat. But now that the paranormal is opened up and you hear the other experiences from so many people that share similar like that, that you hear the voices and they'll try to influence you to do harm. And so, I mean, that's what I mean. That's why it was so hard being 9, 10, 12 years old, able to see these things, and they just would like morph, I would look at them and they would just morph. And so at the time, I didn't know they were demons or spirits or anything. I mean, because we had nowhere to get any information on anything, and pretty much you lived a really secluded life, because you can't talk about it. Well, you couldn't talk about it back then, not like now. Uh, what's going
Yeah, I
on,
mean,
Mr. Consultant Matt Barron?
yes. What's going on, Matt Barron? Glad to have you watching. It's true. I mean, that's kind of why I named my show why I did, because paranormal is becoming the new normal slowly.
Yeah,
I mean, I never in a million years when I was a kid thought I'd be on a social platform like Facebook, let alone of all things.
right.
Like I never thought. I mean, you never knew that would exist regardless. And I never expected to see pictures of supposed Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster pictures on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Like it's insane. It's when I was a kid, the only thing you could see those on was
Car-
possibly a rerun of a TV show
yeah, cartoons.
or cartoons, or I mean, possibly even like the book in the library, the one book in the library on Bigfoot that I would take out all the time. But besides that, there was
Yeah,
nothing. Like they didn't even really do TV shows even until like the 2000s when I was a teenager. So
right.
I mean,
And see,
and
that's when I started to see the paranormal was when, um, like I said, I've been around the paranormal since I was 5, so 40 years plus. It wasn't until the 2000s, in there, well, actually later than that, uh, that I actually found out that there was a paranormal community. So I've pretty much lived a really closed life. That side of me has always been closed. I've never spoken to anybody about it, and because I knew the consequences that would happen. And it wasn't until that I really got on Facebook and just I don't know, just one day I just put paranormal, and then I start seeing. Well, it's, when the ghost show started to come out, and of course I still thought it was just on TV, but it was kind of cool. It was interesting because it's kind of like, okay, well they're doing this, and some of the things that they were going to, you can actually see it. You can see it even though it's a video or show. They are at haunted place or places that have spirits, and you can see it in the video. And I'd be like, it's right there, it's right there. You turn around, it's right there, and so that's what really started I started to realize that there is other people like myself, and so then when I started getting deeper into Facebook, then just started punching up paranormal, and I started seeing that there was a whole big basket of paranormal people, which I didn't even know you called it paranormal. I didn't even know the technical terms or the paranormal language. I just knew this is what it is. Didn't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I don't even remember when I first heard the term paranormal. I couldn't even tell you, but I mean, it's just, I mean, I used to watch like Monsters and Mysteries in America and like Monster Quest and stuff like that, but I don't think they once ever used the term paranormal. They just tried to sell you on whatever monster they're talking about that episode
Yeah,
or whatever three monsters they're talking about if you're talking about Monsters and Mysteries. But
right.
and the stories, I mean, the reenactments they did were always more comedy than actual like
Right.
information.
And see, and I grew up watching the Munsters. Now that you bring up Monsters, I grew up watching the Munsters, and for me, that was normal.
Oh, I love the monsters. I love them. But it's funny. I mean, the there's two. Oh, actually, okay. There's three, but the two funniest Monsters and Mysteries in America segments I ever saw were the gnome that was supposedly living in these people's shed, and like the laugh of the laugh they gave that gnome in the reenactment is stuck in my brain for eternity. It's
Yeah.
never gonna go away. And the shadow person slash hat man encounter on Monsters and Mysteries, because it was literally like a shadow man with a top hat, like
Yeah.
smoking a cigar, and like the father was just like, I told it to go away and never come back, and it did. It never came back, and I'm like, it wasn't a shadow person then, because you have no control over them. You can't tell them just to leave, and they're gonna leave. Like,
Right.
you need proper people to come in and take care of it for you. But it's just, I mean, it's funny. Like, I think back to it now, like, and I believed it full heartedly when I was a teenager. Like, that was the truth. But
Right.
now it's just like a laughing thing. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
really? That's what I believed. I mean, I actually might be starting a thing for this show, like a subscription thing where me and some guests watch shows like that, and then we like just do commentary while we're watching them, like Mystery Science Theater type stuff. But
Right.
it's just some of those things are so funny nowadays. But I
Oh
don't know.
shoot! I thought you saw a spirit next to you.
What was that?
I thought you saw a spirit next to you.
I live in a house with at least two spirits. So that's highly possible. I, I were you watching last night when I showed that video or no?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a video I have of well, here it's only freaking, what is it, 20 seconds long? Might as well show it. That's my garage.
Right.
Like, and then it comes back again towards the camera. At some point, there it goes.
Right. Now,
I
would
mean,
you say that that's an orb? Because
I
there's a big thing right now that there is no such things as orbs, and nobody's really captured definite, no doubt of an orb.
well, I mean, I think it's an orb, and I mean, Sean Kelly from Chasing Prophecy and Pitch for Paranormal last night, like, confirmed that's an orb, because he says the only thing that are true orbs are white balls. They can't be any other color. They're white balls,
Right.
and that's literally what there was one of them in that video, and then I have another video, not my computer, unfortunately, with two orbs floating around the garage, and I had another video I showed last night of like a bunch of orbs, it looks like, but he says that one is just dust, possibly. But I don't see how that's possible because I don't have like open windows in my garage during the winter or anything, so, or an open door. So why would that much dust be blowing anywhere? Like,
Right.
I don't know. But Dover Paratech says people are only skeptics until they experience it for themselves. It doesn't matter what you tell them; they have to experience it for themselves. But they have to project their own light, he says, as far as orbs, which there's no light in my garage. I mean, there is, but there's no light in my garage that's on at that time
Right.
of night. I mean, there's only a camera which catches motion, and almost on an every other day basis, we catch some kind of video.
Right.
I mean, I've had mediums on my show straight up tell me like, yeah, you have a spirit in your house, and some of them say two, but some say one. And he used to have an antique car, and he likes to hang out in the garage and carport like he was working on the car, and like that's all he does is like hang out in the garage and carport and walk back and forth. Because my wife has seen like something in the driveway at night, like going from like walking through the garage door and going to the carport. I mean, plus, I mean, there's so much more. I went through it last night too, so I don't want to go into too much detail again. But basically, it comes down to chickens being killed and my dog being terrified of being in the back part of the garage. So, and hey, Josh, glad you're watching again. And
what's going on, Josh?
Yeah, Josh has been watching my shows for a long time. So
yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But so I mean, I don't know. I definitely I know I live in a haunted house. It doesn't bother me. Like I don't ever feel creeped out anymore. Like I did when I first moved in. Like it seems like the spirit decided to leave us alone and just go hang out in the garage all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, according to my wife, it doesn't like us because she kind of is sensitive to these things, and she thinks that it doesn't like us, and that she swears it was talking to her when she was in the garage one night hanging out with the dogs, like partying. But
right.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I keep meaning to get a person I know, a woman I know from Salem, Sunshine Star. She's a clairvoyant among many other things, and she wants to come clear out my house. I just have to set a date for her to do it, and I'm kind of looking forward to it, honestly, because it just, I mean, just to know they're not there anymore would be kind of nice. Like no more having to look around my shoulder trying to catch a glimpse of it or anything. But
right.
What's going on, Chris? Glad you're watching. But I mean, I don't know. That's just me. But there's also been a big debate from what I've heard lately, but from my guests, that people say ghosts aren't actually spirits of the dead. They say they're something else.
Well, I mean, I've heard that argument where some people come out and they'll say that we actually manifest the spirits, you know, because we have it in our head, and being in a group, well, then we have that collective mind, and so we manifest that.
I mean, I can see why people would think that maybe, but I never had an imaginary friend as a child or anything like that. So I just can't manifest things out of my freaking head like that. Like it just doesn't work. Like,
right.
If I could, I'd be rich. I'd be manifesting money. Like I wouldn't want to manifest a ghost. I'd be manifesting money. Like come on now. But it's just one of those things. Like I am a full believer that the spirits of the dead are what we see, and that there's a reincarnation going on, and either they're stuck on Earth and they're grounded, or they go up and get reincarnated into another body.
Yeah.
If they're stuck on Earth, it means they died unexpectedly, or they just don't want to leave for some reason. They're attached to something, whether it be a house or an object or what have you.
Yeah, and this goes back to what the other gentleman said, that until they experience it themselves, you know, they're not going to really believe it. You know, and it's going to have to be an experience where they're going to see something or whatever that's going to happen, where they know themselves, this after they bounce it around in their head, that this can't be explained. I mean, just as easy, and you know what you saw. You know, that's when the person there will see that this is real.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. Until I lived in this house, I never saw any proof of anything, but yet I always was a believer. So, right. I mean, there are people like me, I know that, who just want to believe regardless without seeing anything. And they always say those that want to see don't see, and I'm a living example of that, because I in the last 5 years, I believe I've seen UFOs, a cluster of them, and I know I've seen spirit. I haven't seen them, but I know I've seen spirits on camera in my own house. So I haven't seen them personally because they don't like to show themselves to me, apparently. Just my wife and her family, because I guess they're more sensitive than I am. But
right.
So I don't know. I mean, but Let me ask you this: since you live in Texas, what do you think about skinwalkers?
Well, that's what we think. That's what I think that we're dealing with in that forest. Because
Really?
when we went there, we weren't even expecting to see. I mean, we weren't even planning to do anything. Um, we had my son. He's an artist. He's a music artist, and we had just done a show in San Antonio. And we got out. We got out about 10 o'clock at night, and then of course, we're in San Antonio. Um, in fact, that's where the team actually came together out of that first experience that we had, and so we really weren't looking for anything, and when we went there, it's just like I said, it just we just walked in at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. And I've heard this before, that some of these places will choose their people to show themselves, and if you have certain people with you that are that they have their abilities, or their energy is just right. And like I said, that's what I feel, that place just happened. We happened to walk into this place that it was at the right time, the right place, with the right people, and it just opened up.
Which, yeah, I mean, the synchronicity of that happening
Yeah,
is just amazing. Like I'm a huge believer in synchronicity. It happens for a reason, and I, I mean, I don't know. My wife has made me walk through so many woods, including Freetown State Forest in Massachusetts, as well as we went to Leominster State Forest a couple weeks ago for a hike with the dogs, and they're both Bigfoot hotspots.
yeah,
And I mean, because Freetown's in the Bridgewater Triangle, and it's a huge Bigfoot hotspot. It was a huge satanic cult crime spot in the 80s and 90s. So
yeah.
I went in there. I went in there like, come on, let me see something. Let me see something. And nothing. Of course, I see nothing. But it's just like I want to see. Like I feel like sometimes it's just the fact that I want to see something so bad that there's like, nah, he's too anxious. We're not showing ourselves to him.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, but do you think skinwalkers are actually based on an ancient Native American curse, or are they something else entirely?
Well, the skinwalker is conjured by a native witch, and when she conjures it up, it's actually a man, and then she'll use it to do whatever she needs it to do. And that place, like I said, that one place, we've heard native drums, we've heard women crying. It's kind of like when we heard the women crying, it was like they were being massacred in there,
Oh,
and so with all the experience that we had, when we came back, I started doing the research on that land, and that land dated back because when they were building the dam in San Antonio, um, they found pottery there, and when they were digging up the dam, and they dated it back 10,000 years. So
damn.
the natives, the papaya natives that were there 10,000 years, and then so when I just started thinking about it, it's like, okay, so they've been here, 10,000 years. How many generations is that? And then where did they pass, and where did they bury them? Well, they buried them there. That's where they're at.
Yeah.
And then 10,000 years later, here comes, here we come, and they build a bike trail right through the middle of the forest. Well, that bike trail is probably going right over other cemeteries there, other native burial ground. And um, so, but what's there is when I started, to doing all the research on it, the first thing that popped in my head, and I didn't even think about really skinwalkers, because I've really never been into the UFO or the Bigfoot thing, or it's always been just paranormal, spirits and ghosts, and you know that type of deal. And so I really I never thought about all that until I started doing the research and putting the pieces together, that it started to lead that way. And there's more to it. I mean, I can't even start. I mean, the last podcast I did was 5 hours on that. That was just starting out on it. So,
Jeez.
and so, but yeah, I do believe that there's a skinwalker or some type of being, because I have some stuff up on YouTube where there's a growl that comes out at us because we're in there about 3 to 4 miles in the forest, and it's just plain dark. And I'm one that we really don't use flashlights unless we have to. I like to be quiet, be in the dark, and just get into my in our place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
And
course.
so the way that felt, the ground was so deep. I mean, I felt it inside of me. It was just vibrated, and it went from one side to the other side, and then back to the front, and then behind us. But you never heard any noise, any rustling through the bush or anything. So this thing is just kept, like, it just manifested here, then it manifested behind us. But then, talking to other people, it's like there was more than one, and we did feel like we were being surrounded. I know that we can go to places sometimes, and especially in buildings or anything like that, and we can feel like we're being watched from all around. But this literally felt like we were fixing to be attacked. Like we're done. And so all I can say about it is that I believe my conclusion right now is that it's not an alien, it's not human, and it's not a spirit. It's something else.
Well, I'll let you answer this question real fast, but Dover Paratech asks, did Anthony ever investigate the Alamo? I hear lots of stories about that place.
Yeah, the Alamo, it's got its spirits all around it. I mean, and then too, because there's so many people, and it's right in the middle in the plaza, right next to the Menger Hotel, which is haunted. That's where the Rough Riders used to go. Um, and then you got another hotel right across from it, also the Emily Morgan, which is that one's its own place. That's what I mean. That whole area is just one giant hotspot. But you can't really investigate in there because uh, the security won't let you. That place is kind of like I mean, you can't even walk in front of it. If you smoke cigarettes, you can't even walk in front of it smoking a cigarette.
Really?
Yeah,
That's,
it's just so like it's disrespectful, and they have actually signs. I think they tell you that. And that's actually the they have law enforcement in front where they'll stop you, and it's just it's a sacred ground of in a way.
interesting. Josh says, I've been attacked by a black mass, which I'm not sure what that means even. I'm assuming it means by Satanist, but I'm assuming. But I
It
don't.
might be in his trailer because I know he lived in a house that I think that spirit would catch things on fire.
I mean, I know he was the caretaker of some haunted place, but he's commented that before on my video, so I'm not sure. But feel free to give a little more detail there, Josh. But let me ask you this though: you feel like you're being. Oh, he says it means a dark entity,
Yeah.
which I don't. That's a black mass, though. I mean, I would assume a mass. I would assume a mass is more than one entity. I would assume it's like a congregation of them almost.
Well, like a black shadow, Then I see those all the time.
Okay, I like this comment. The goo in Ant-Man 3 is an old Native American ceremony, turd and shrooms. I saw that movie, so that's funny that you said that, but I can believe it. And Josh says, I guess a shadow person,
Yeah.
which I mean, shadow persons, shadow people freak me out. Like I never had to deal with one, but the idea of them freaks me out. Like
I got two of them in here.
I mean, supposedly my wife's sister, when she was here, not this past Thanksgiving, but the one before it, at our house, like a month. It was like a month. It was not even a month after we moved in. Like she was up at like 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and she saw a shadow person walking from the hallway to the kitchen and then back and forth, back and forth. Then it would stand in the hallway and stare at her, according to her. And the house they lived in, the house she lives in still, my sister-in-law, is in the Bridgewater Triangle and is on Native American burial ground. So they have my wife has all these stories of shadow people when she was growing up in that house and when her grandparents owned it and she would stay there. Like she woke up one day when she was a kid and there's just a shadow person like leaning over her and like she'll say like it feels like they're sitting in my chest.
Yeah.
So shadow people creep me out to no end. I don't want. I don't want to deal with one. I just
Oh, they're
don't.
cool, man. They're cool.
I don't. I mean, did you see that show on Hulu? I think it's called Monster.
No.
There's a show on Hulu called Monster where they go into all these different like paranormal topics in each episode, and then like at the end of the season, all kinds of like all the people from the episodes kind of come together. But there's one episode where it's a teenager dealing with he has a sick mother, and she's in bed all day, and he's dealing with like a shadow person invasion in his house, and it's just like it creeps you out. Like it makes you not want to even have chef people in your house at all. Like it's just like it's funny because that whole show was filmed in Kingston, New York, where I'm from. But I mean, it's just so many different paranormal topics. That was a good show. I like that show. But let me ask you this though. This is what I wanted to ask you. You say you feel like you're being surrounded in those woods, and it's Texas. I mean, well, it doesn't matter where it is in the United States. It's the United States, and it's the deep woods. You don't think you're maybe being surrounded by a pack of dogmen?
I don't know. I haven't never seen a Dogman. I mean, I've heard about it, but I've never really.
I mean, I never seen one either, but I fear seeing one because dogmen are not like Bigfoot, according to all legends. But dogmen are territorial and will attack you, unlike Bigfoot. Like Bigfoot don't attack you unless you're like threatening to really come in their territory.
Yeah. Well, you
Like,
see,
if
you
you're
see, the second time that we went back. I said we've been there 6 times within 2 years, and I said the first time it cost me a member. The second time that we went back, we went to the other side of it. There's like it's huge, so we went on another side of it, and we ran into a hiker, which that video is on YouTube. It's what it's called, the hiker. And because we were trying to find a house, because there's a 2-story house way deep in there, but we didn't know it was 3 miles. And when he was jogging towards us, I stopped him and just said, "Hey, I mean, how far back did you go?" And he goes, "Well, I go pretty far." And I said, "Hey, do you know about a house that's back there?" He goes, "Yeah, it's in there, but it's 3 miles." He goes, "You got a ways to go." And then then I just asked him. I mean, we're paranormal investigators. We're always talking to people, so it's real easy for us just to change the subject into the paranormal. So I said, "Well, hey, when in your jobs out here, have you ever felt anything or ever seen anything?" Because see, we already had been there. That was our second time, and we already had experienced everything the first time. And we starts to talk to us, and he starts telling us about that. We're telling him what we experienced, and he's just going, "Wow, man, this is a." He starts showing us the trees. In the trees, you can see them where they're broken, and like that's when you start to see, when you start getting into the Bigfoot thing, how they'll break the big trees and they make them into, like they're marking their territory. And actually, there was one there that was broken like that, and it's a big tree. And he was showing it to us. He goes, "I got some pictures, man, that I can show you." And and so he starts showing us pictures of more trees like that, and he's talking about his experiences in there. But after talking to him for a little while, and like I said, if y'all want to go check that out, I mean, that interview was pretty cool. And afterwards, I spoke to him on the phone, and come to find out, because he had a backpack on, and he's a jogger, he's got a backpack on. But I asked him, I said, "Hey, I'm not trying to be nosy, but what are you carrying in that backpack?" And I had a feeling already and he goes, "Well," I said, "Do you do offerings in there?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do offerings." I go in there and I go into the forest and I make offerings to the spirit that's there. I bring wine, and I have bread and water, and I do what was it? I just said it. I lost my
Offering.
Yeah, an offering. And it's because I started thinking about it in my mind when I was seeing that he's doing an offering, but also he's also in the Air Force, and he's active. And anytime that it comes down to being skinwalkers or Bigfoot, if you do the research and you see, the government is always involved in that. If it's a UFO or interdimensional Bigfoot or whatever it is, the government is always involved in it. They'll get the land and they'll shut it down where nobody can go in there anymore, and they do their research in there with it. But it was just coincidence. Of course, we don't believe that, but the only word I can think of is that you have someone, stop them out of the blue, and next thing you know, he's giving us all these stories. I mean, the experience that he's had, and he's in the Air Force, he's active, and yet he's in there making offerings to some spirit. Now, if the Air Force would find out about that, because the Air Force and the military is real strict on your mentality, they would probably kick him out. Or if they know about it and they have him there because there is something in there and he's trying to communicate with it and bring that information back. It got deeper and deeper.
It's a wormhole and a half right there. And I mean, I saw a post on Facebook today about Bigfoots that in one of my many groups I'm in that Bigfoots they seem like it's from these people who I've talked to before. I'm trying to get them on my show, but they're really hard to get on my show. They're really hard to get because they live like in the middle of the woods. Like they according to them, they live in a Bigfoot sanctuary, and they post pictures every day of Bigfoots that I can't see them in the pictures really, but they draw outlines and supposedly they're there, and they live in like a Bigfoot sanctuary where they have like adult to like young Bigfoots.
Yeah,
and basically like they say that it seems like the Bigfoots are studying humans, trying to figure everything out about us, and like they're reporting back somebody like what they saw that day. So, I mean, whether they're reporting back to extraterrestrial masters,
I've heard that story.
Whether they're reporting back to extraterrestrial masters or they're reporting back to the government, even who knows? Like it's I mean, it's a wormhole and a half, but I mean, it just you don't know. I mean, the government could be using Bigfoots. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Was it last night? Yeah, last night on with Michael Anthony and Sean Kelly. We talked about the idea that like during forest fires, I've heard a story about how ambulance took a burned Bigfoot, and the ambulance driver and the helper were never heard from again.
Right.
Both the EMTs were never heard from again, and they drove off with the Bigfoot. And I'm assuming the men in black about a mile down the road just pulled them over, or the khaki men as they're called nowadays, just pulled them over and said, "Nope, we're taking it. Bye."
Yeah.
Like just offed them, just so they had no witnesses. But I don't know. It's weird. I mean, I joke around and say it, but it's probably true.
Yeah.
The next big pandemic we have, instead of UFOs being real, Bigfoot's gonna be real.
Right.
The next time they need to take our minds off something, they're gonna say Bigfoot's real.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But so I don't know. I mean, it's just I see that's the biggest problem with the paranormal is you simply don't know any of it. None of it's proven, and it's enough to drive you insane. Like the fact that you want to know the truth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And that place, it got deeper and deeper and deeper. Another piece to that puzzle. Why do you have this active military Air Force guy in there doing offerings to something that's in there? So that tells you that he's seen it. He believes that it's there. There's something in there. And then among all the other experiences, it just kept on piling up every time that we went. And so you start having this stack of evidence, for us that there is something in there. That's one of the most intense experiences we've had. But of course, I've had plenty of other ones. We've been chased off by giant grasshoppers. How about that one at the cemetery? We got chased out by a swarm of mosquitoes at another one. It's pretty wild, now, the stuff that happens.
When you say giant grasshoppers, how giant are we talking? Like, are we talking like mantis man size or like?
No, I mean, they're like, I guess it would be Texas size. Everything's big in Texas, right?
Supposedly.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. It's about 1, 2, maybe about 3.5 inches big, like that. And we were about a cemetery. I mean, when you got something that big flying around hitting you, I mean, it hits you pretty hard,
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you got a whole swarm of these things. And it was at a cemetery in Alamo, Texas, and it's called the Baby Head Cemetery. And it was just between, it's right close to San Antonio too. It's right outside of San Antonio, not too far. And we went there, and it's a place, man, that does have, it's really active. But what ended up happening is that I had taken, okay, the ground is covered with crystals. That's what's crazy about it. You know, you see these glimmering rocks on there, but they're actually crystals. And I mean, the whole cemetery is covered with, the whole ground is covered with them. And that place used to be, there was native land also. And that's why they got the story of the baby head, because the settlers that were there, they were attacked by the natives, and they captured some of the kids, and they cut their heads off and they put them on sticks. So that's why they call it baby head, because they were young children that they captured. So they say. And well, I ended up taking one of those crystals because it was just a real pretty crystal, and I liked it. And then I took it, and I said, I'm going to take this back with me. Well, right as soon as I did that, we had this one, just this grasshopper started coming out. I mean, they weren't there when we got there. It was daylight. I mean, it was daytime and everything. And I have that on video also. And then before you know it, you got one flying by. You can just hear him zoom by, and you hear the wings.
Interesting. I mean, that to me almost sounds like the idea like they have in Hawaii, where if you take rocks off the volcano, the night watchers will come and like after you.
Right. But, the lava rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be like a Native American curse on that land, that like if you try to take part of the land, they have these curses out, like grasshoppers, or what was the other thing you said, locust, or like, well, I could see that. I can honestly see that.
Well, when I was walking with it, and then they started to pop up, and they're like zooming by, and you can see them in the video because I had my camera. Actually, I had this little camera right here, and I was filming with this one, and they would pop the camera, they would hit it, and you can hear it, and then you start to see them come by, like 1 or 2, then 4 and 6, and then just started to multiply. I had that crystal in my hand, and you can hear me on the video where I didn't scream. It startled me. I'm not gonna say that, I'm a Texas Wraith Hunter, man. We don't scream. But one of those grasshoppers actually came and took the crystal out of my hand and flew away with it.
Which that right there tells me it's a curse of some kind. They're there to reclaim what you took.
And then after it took it, there was like more that were coming out, and they started to hit us. I mean, and it hurt because they have some hard heads on there, and I mean they were just popping us, pop, and it just it was wild. We ended up leaving, and I still ran in there, and I still got another crystal, and I ran off with it.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense to me though. I mean, natives, if they want to protect the land, they always would protect the land if they wanted to, even after death. I mean, because my wife grew up, or not grew up, but lived, her grandparents and then her lived on the edge of the Bridgewater Triangle, and there's this in the woods behind that house. There's a tree with all these eyes carved into it, and like. They brought her. They went back there a bunch of times to drink and whatnot, and they literally were throwing like bags of empties back there. I know, stupid young kids, whatever.
Yeah,
like empty beer cans, whatever. But they brought their friend back there one time, and their friend is very hippie-ish and very like, I assume she's sensitive to this type of stuff too. And as soon as she went in that clearing where the tree was, she's like, I don't like the vibes here. We need to go. Like, she never took me to see this tree because she didn't want to go back to that place. But I mean, I kind of want to go see it and film it for the podcast just so I could be like, what the heck is this? Like, because obviously it's a native thing, because I doubt kids are going to carve that many eyes into a tree.
Right. And I know that grasshopper story sounds pretty wild, but hey, that's what we experienced. You experienced some crazy stuff. Like you said, we just can't explain it.
Well, I mean, I've heard weirder, so it's not even that strange to me. But I mean, I'm a big fan of Monsters Among Us podcast with Derek Hayes. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
It's a viewers call. People call in the average people call in and tell their stories about like experiences with the paranormal. I highly recommend anybody who's in the paranormal listens to it because you can hear in their voices like the fear when they're retelling things. Like you can hear the fear, you can hear like they're not lying. But the craziest call on his show ever, and he's replayed it like multiple times because it's just insane, was a hunter from I want to say Georgia or Alabama named Mac,
Yeah.
and he was up in his tree blind, and he fell out of his tree blind deep in the woods, and he basically broke his back at that point. But according to him, and I've heard his story multiple times, he called in multiple times because he had bad audio connection, and I believe him. He was picked up by a female Bigfoot and forced to drink her breast milk.
Mm.
While hearing another Bigfoot in the background, he assumed a male, making noises like grunting noises, like kind of like saying like almost like we gotta go before more humans show up. And so the female eventually put him back down on the ground and left him. His family came a couple hours later or whatever and found him. But the funny thing is, he got to the hospital for his back, and the doctors all said weeks later his back healed faster than they ever heard of anyone's back healing from that injury.
Right.
Which, I mean, you put two and two together, and do Bigfoot breast milk have special properties to them that can heal? Like,
probably so. It sounds some good milk.
I mean, he said it was the nastiest tasting thing he ever tasted, but which I could believe that. I mean, obviously it's gonna be. I mean, I wouldn't want to taste no gorilla breast milk, but still, like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, that's the craziest story I ever heard in my life, and I believe it to the fullest because
Right.
the way he tells it, he's not no educated man who's going to try to make a story like that up. Like, he's just a simple man who was hunting in the woods. Like, that's all it is. Like, I don't know. I believe it to the fullest, and I love that story. I mean, I am so behind on that show since I don't really listen to podcasts anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was working from home and I've been unemployed for a month. So, I mean, literally a month today I've been unemployed. So I don't really listen to podcasts anymore that often. But that story is just insane to me. Like, I've heard some crazy stories on that show, including ones about people seeing what they believe were extraterrestrials in their bedroom, but they look like a chimpanzee in like overalls, like in Dunstan, checks in, and a T-Rex in a doctor suit. Like, it's highly believed by the host Derek and that by the people that called that they were extraterrestrials or grays that were shape shifting to make kids feel more comfortable.
Right.
Because they were based off some TV show or something. But I mean, I don't know. I've heard some crazy things in those shows, and it's just like it makes you want to believe in everything so much more. Like hearing people tell their stories in their own voices. It's not even like one of those shows where he reads it in his voice. Like it's their own voices. It's literally messages these people left telling their stories.
Right.
And I mean, Monsters Among Us. I had Derek Hayes on my show months ago, like back last summer. And I fully recommend anybody who's in the paranormal listen to that show. It's such a good show. He's won the Paranormality Award so many times for that show. Like, it's just the idea he had to do that was amazing. I talk about it on the show all the time because it's what reenacted my love for the paranormal was that show.
Right. So now, do you go out and investigate?
Unfortunately, besides my random hikes that my wife makes me go on, no, because between full-time job, between kids, two big mastiffs, and a wife, and podcasting,
Right.
I don't have. I don't. You podcast. I'm on 3 podcasts. The time it takes is very consuming, and
Yeah.
there's just not. I mean, I personally don't investigate. I would love to someday, but part of me is also a little like anxious, I guess be the word to do it. Like, I don't want to say scared because I'm not really scared to do it. Like, I don't think a ghost is gonna like kill me or anything, but it's just I'm anxious about it because I
You
never
just throw
done
you
it.
around a little bit, rough you up, and that's all. You'll be all right.
I mean, I'm a big motherfucking man. I could take it, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know. One of these days, there's a mansion in the town I live in called the S.K. Pierce Mansion,
Yeah.
and um, the girl I know from Salem was just investigating it not long ago. East Coast Haunted, or what the hell they called? I honestly forget what they're called right now, but East Coast Haunted, I think they're called. They just were up here like investigating it like back in the summer. Like I would love to go there and investigate because this mansion is so haunted that firemen and policemen refuse to go in there alone when the alarms go off.
Yeah.
So I would love to go in there and like they say the basement there is super haunted, but I don't know. I mean, I would love to someday, but I wouldn't want to go in alone. That's the thing. Like, I want a professional with me who could be like, tell me what's happening. Like
Yeah.
I'd love to have like a medium or a sensitive person with me to be like, all right, here's what's happening right now.
Right.
Like I need someone there to explain to me, so I'm not just like freaking out when I hear shit or
Yeah.
see shit. But
I'll send you a haunted doll, and you can start with that.
oh, that next time I go to Florida, I'm going to Key West and I'm seeing Robert the Doll. That's my goal.
Mm.
Because I haven't been back to Florida since my dad died in 2017.
Right.
So that's my goal is to next time I go there to go to a theme parks and everything. I'm gonna take a little side trip down to Key West a couple days because I mean it's Key West. You can go have fun and get drunk, but I want to go see Robert the Doll.
Right.
Because I mean, I'm not gonna take a picture of him or anything without his permission, but because you don't do that unless you want to be haunted. But I don't know. I've heard so many stories about Robert the Doll, so many podcasts talk about him that like it just to the end of days, I want to meet him. Like I want to see him and give him my honors in a way, kind of. I mean,
Right.
He's just such a figure in the world, and supposedly so many movies are based on him. But let me ask you this though: why aren't you into UFOs and aliens at all?
Just never really experienced anything like that. I never thought about it. I mean, like I said, since I was a child, I mean, my thing has always been spiritual, and so I've never really got into the UFOs or the aliens or the Green Man or anything like that. For me, it's always been cartoons like that. Not just saying they're not real, but just never really.
I mean, you live in Texas. You live in like one of the biggest UFO states out there.
Oh yeah,
but
there's a lot of stuff, that we had to hear about, but I just don't. I don't even know how to go about it. I mean, because even though we are mainly we do our stuff outside. We do abandoned buildings every now and then, things like that. But we're mainly outside, and thinking that we would see things like that because we're in these open areas. They're pitch dark. There's nothing around us. Civilization is kind of far away from us, so we're able to see the stars real pretty. I mean, there you see all of them, but I've never really experienced anything like that. I mean, it's kind of like I'm really not even interested in it. My thing has always been more of a spiritual side to it than abductions or anything. I do tell my family though when we do leave, is if I don't come back, either I got crossed over and I don't know how to get back, or something took me.
Which Josh, he just said that he believes they could exist, but he just hasn't encountered one.
Right.
That's what he literally just said that. But I mean, I saw at the house my wife lived in when I first met her in the Bridgewater Triangle. I saw what looked like. Well, I didn't see it first. My son saw it. My stepson saw it first. And it was literally like he asked me, like, Dad, why are those stars moving? And I'm like, I had a few drinks at that point. So I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Stars moving? I'm like, oh, like literally 8 or 9 star-looking things moving in one direction in like a formation.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I've been the biggest believer of aliens forever. Like ever. Like I read a book series when I was a kid called like My Teacher's an Alien was the first book, and then like went on to like 2 or 3 books past that, where like the president was an alien and everything. But so like I love I truly believe aliens exist. Like whether they're interdimensional or from space, I don't know. I can't say. I like to believe from space, not interdimensional, but maybe interdimensional is just the way they travel.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Maybe one
but
day, if it happens to me, like I said, I didn't really go. I didn't even. Not that I didn't believe, but I just never thought about the cryptid side of this. You know.
yeah, I mean,
And
that's the side that that's the side that was fascinating me more than the ghost side. Like
right,
that's
and
just the way.
see, and until we went to this one place, and like I said, not looking for anything cryptid or anything. Actually, there's a urban legend about that place. There's a bridge, so we went there just because of the urban legend because we were bored and we just
Oh,
wanted to go somewhere. We said
like
we just
like a crybaby bridge, like
yeah,
kind of.
it's called a donkey lady bridge, and it's about back in the day. This lady had a donkey, and there was this kid that would go by her house, and it's by the river, and he would throw rocks at it, and then she got mad and she yelled at him, so he runs off back to San Antonio. His dad is like a big shot out there, so him and his friends come back later on the night, kill the donkey, set the house on fire, well, she's in it. So she comes out through the window all on fire with her face being, melting, and her hands had
Yeah.
melted, her fingers had melted into they looked like hoofs. And she fell in the river, but they never found her. So then after that, she would appear anybody that would go to that bridge, and
Okay.
so that's the urban legend of it, and that's the reason why we went. And then we really didn't even stay on that bridge very long. We were there, and we were just drawn to go deeper past that. Once you pass that bridge, then you start going into that forest, and then you start going through the trails. And so I mean, even at that, we weren't even looking for what we think is in there now. It was
Well,
just like we stumbled on something.
let me ask you this, because I meant to ask you this earlier and I never got to it. Did you actually get to that house?
Yeah, we did. That
Was
house
it?
looks just like
Was
at a
it?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean,
Which,
we went 3 miles. It's 3 miles in there, and of course, unless you're a hiker and you do this all the time, it's gonna kick your butt. I mean, we
yeah,
by the time we got there, it took us like over an hour and a half to walk there because the trail's not straight. It curves like this, and then it goes up and
yeah,
down, and so you're working out. And so finally, when we get around this curve, and we come around this curve, and then there's a fence, and then you could just see the house in the darkness. I mean, it's a 2-story house, and it looks just like something out of, like I said, the Chainsaw Massacre thing. And it's you're 3 miles in there. That's pretty. It may not seem like it's far, but yeah, you're in there. You scream, there's nobody going to hear you. You know.
oh God, no, yeah,
So
no.
yeah, it was pretty wild. We did end up jumping the fence and going up to the house, and we did go inside. And it's an old house. I mean, it's the foundation. Actually, half of the house from the foundation up is the old style of rock, And then they built the house on it, but some of the walls are still stone. And the basement, we went in the basement because we had to jump down because the stairs were broken, so we had to jump down into the basement. And that was crazy because there was a table with chairs down there, and it's like a big farm because there's other buildings that are also, and they're just, I mean, it's real old. I mean, we did get some activity outside. We didn't get anything inside, but that growl again was that followed us all the way up there, and then it growled again. But this growl is not a growl. In my mind, it's like a giant gorilla because it was so deep that you could feel it when it would just growl. You could feel it inside your body.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that. Just real deep. And then I mean, you don't know where it's coming from because it comes from here, but then it sounds like it's coming from here, but then you can't pinpoint it. And then you're so far in there in the dark. I mean, you forget. We went 3 miles, but you got to come 3 miles back. So that's 6 miles now.
I mean, one, I would be heading to this house like in the earliest of morning just to make sure I'm there in daylight and I'm out of the woods by daylight because I ain't trying to fuck with no woods and no house in the woods and darkness. And I mean, that house is probably from what, the 1800s at
Yeah,
least.
it's actually, yeah, they're trying to rebuild it now. They're,
Why? As a tourist attraction, or like who's gonna
yeah,
go live in
it's
a
like
house
a
in
it's
the
like a
woods?
landmark now.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, ain't no one trying to live these day and age like in a house 3 miles in the woods. Like, I mean, yeah, there are some people who would like to live there, I'm sure, but they're probably serial killers or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just I don't know.
It was
Or that,
creepy because there was another building away from it. It's got several buildings. It's like a ranch house in a way. And there's another building next down a little ways from it, which you have to go through the woods to get to that one too. And we weren't able to get into that one because it was the door was just so old and wooden and we couldn't open it. But we could open the top part of it and shine our light in there. And inside that it was like a little shed, but it's stone, um, maybe like a 25 by 25, something like that. And but when we shined the light, we couldn't get in there. So I told one of my members to stick the camera in there, and see if you can get anything with the footage with the camera while you shine the light. And he did that. And when we looked at the footage, there was pictures of corn on the walls. I mean, pictures of corn. I mean, just how the stalks of corn
yeah.
and on the walls. And it's kind of like, what kind of crap is this? Who has? Why is there pictures of corn in there?
That's strange. I mean, have you ever looked at, have you ever looked into like the history of who owned that house or?
That it was owned by some people. I don't remember how that story went on that one. Um, I just know that they turned it into a landmark, and they were going to start to renovate it to the way it
Mm,
used to be. But that was just weird. I mean, that was just weird to look inside of there and see pictures of corn.
I mean, a house 3 miles in the wood. One thing would be that would creep me out enough to like if I'm gonna go in there, I would want a team of people with me, and I would
Uh,
want like to have like a freaking not even a gun, but like a cross or something on me as well, just in case. But like I don't know, that's I mean, or even a gun, just in case it is a
yeah,
Texas Chainsaw type house. But who knows?
and
But I mean,
it's dark, dude. It is pitch dark, and when you come up to it, you still won't even see it until you start getting like really like right in front of it. The house will just start to appear, because it's so dark, and then you see how big it is, and then you start seeing all the things that are around it, and I mean, it's really old. I mean, it's cool because the staircase is one of those old wooden staircases, just go straight up, like straight out of something like out of the scary movies. Um,
yeah.
so
I mean,
yeah,
it's creepy. I mean,
when you're there like that and experiencing that, yeah, you're a little on your edge.
I'd be creeped out to no end. But that's just me personally. But I would be creeped out to no end. I mean, I would check it out during the day, but you couldn't pay me to go to that at night. Like hell no. I ain't walking 3 miles through any forest at night. Like
It's
forget about
exciting,
that.
man. It's exciting.
So is playing video games and watching TV. But God, I could do that in the safety of my home and not have to worry about getting killed by a dog man or a feral Bigfoot or something like, or a skinwalker for God forbid. I mean, Jesus, but it's just it's a whole thing. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a chicken when it comes to that shit. I'm a chicken, but I'm willing to admit it at least. But I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah,
love the paranormal.
you wouldn't get very far in there. Most
Oh God,
people, I've taken some people in there. I've taken other founders from a couple of other paranormal groups, and they only get to the first part of it, and they'll end up turning around. They'll say like, "No, this is going too far. I don't really want to walk that far." But I already know. I mean, they start to feel everything in there like that, and starts messing with them, and they're out of there.
well, you said you lost a person to it. Like I'm assuming they quit the group right after that. But
Yeah, he was native himself. He was native, and he had an experience in there, related to the native people that were there.
yeah, I mean, I imagine, and I don't know. It's just not something I would do at night, especially like during the day. Be one thing, but like
Well,
I mean,
that place can be just as bad during the day than at night.
I'm fine with that. At least then I have daylight to go out to, and I can be like, I can feel safer with the daylight. But I don't know, unless it's like permanently night around that house or something. Which who knows? I mean, a house that deep in the woods. like, I mean, yeah, back in the 1800s, early 1900s in Texas, that probably was the norm for big ranchers to have a house that deep in the woods, and then they'd have to ride a horse into town for like 3 miles,
Right.
whatever. But I don't know. It's just, yeah, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing kind of like just made me all more like,
That's
oh,
the first thing I thought when we went around the curve right there, and then we looked, we could see it. And it's like, oh man, this is not right, you know. And then, like I said, then seeing the corn pictures in there, that just kind of even made it even more, you know, just out there.
well, was it actually like pictures, like taken with a camera, or was it like
No, they're
wallpaper?
like picture frames with paintings. They were paintings of corn.
That's okay. That's freaking weird.
That's what I'm saying.
But oh my god, that's insane. That's insane. But why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you, where they can find your podcast? Just promote yourself to the fullest.
Yeah, you can check us out on Texas Wraith Hunters on Facebook. My podcast is Race World Podcast on Facebook, and on YouTube under Texas Wraith Hunters.
So please, folks, go check him out. I'm I see things from his Facebook all the time, his Facebook group, and it's interesting. I enjoy seeing them when I see them. So go check it out, folks. Of course, all my listeners know you can find me on Facebook as Paranormal Normal / Maniacal Music Musings podcast with the S group. You can find me on Twitter and the Gram as at Juggalo Bastard. You can find me on TikTok as at Juggalo Bastard Podcast. And you can find me on YouTube as Paranormal Normal, where this is streaming right now, among other places. And of course, you can find me on the Antisocial and Parapost Network. But until next time, Anthony, thank you for coming on. We will have to get you on again at some point in the future because I'm sure there's more we could talk about even that we didn't get to.
I told you just 5 or 6 hours just to top it off.
Yeah, I'd have to break that up into so many episodes, it'd be ridiculous. But because my listeners are used to hour-long episodes, basically, or nearby at least. But we'll definitely get you on again at some point, I'm sure. But thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back on Monday. I'm pretty sure with my next paranormal interview.